welcome back to another great episode of Freedom Empowered. As always, you have myself, Mason, and the one and only Nicholas.
Hey everybody, hope you guys are having a good day.
Nick, I'm assuming you've had a good day, right?
Yeah? Oh, every day's a good day when you're working hard.
Yeah. A good day is really just about the mindset, I'd say. I usually have pretty good days. I don't know, are you allowed to have bad days? Is a bad day, does that kind of like take away from your productivity, you think?
I feel like it just depends on how you look at it. So, or it's your definition of a bad day. So for a lot of people, a bad day is like, I got stuck in traffic for an extra 30 minutes. What a crappy day. And then there's other people who are like, oh, on my list of 10 things to do today, I did 9 of it. So that's a bad day because I didn't complete it.
You're right. I mean, I almost look at it at a different level, as you can kind of get a little philosophical here, but people shouldn't really be complaining about having a bad day because there's some people out there who have really bad days. You know what I mean? Not even bad days, but just in general. Like I would say, probably 99% of the people listening to this show are living a better life than a lot of people out there in this world. Kind of puts things into perspective.
Yeah, obviously, uh, people in America have first world problems. But if you go to Africa, their good days aren't even close to our bad days.
Do you think that that's like a do people become conditioned to whatever lifestyle that they're living? I think that's the thing. Is if you grow up in a place like that, you're conditioned to that be your norm, and then anything better is awesome. So I don't know. It's an interesting concept because one of the things you hear is people always at least do as good as their parents, if not better, right? Because that's what they were raised in, is whatever class that they grew up in. So no one people usually don't go down, but they'll do just as good, if not better, than their parents. It's pretty interesting to see, and that kind of goes into it. It's just yeah, it's it's just the perspective that you have on life.
Well, I don't know. So I've always thought this for example, like kids who grow up in Africa and they don't have very much food, they're starving all the time. Obviously, they still get hungry and all that, but since that's the only thing they've ever experienced, I don't think they're upset about it. Does that make sense?
Right, entirely.
Because
I
they don't
completely
know it
understand.
could
That's
be
what that's
better.
right. Yeah, no, I understand. That's exactly what I mean, and it's interesting because if you want to get really deep, part of the show is showing people that there's more out there, right? So one of the things with wanting a bigger future is the fact that you want more, right? So what do you think about people who are oblivious to the fact that there's you can get more out of life? Because there's people out there who are very satisfied with the life they live. And this is not a negative thing at all. This is 100% positive. But it's a thing to mention that there's people out there who work a very rough 9 to 5. And by that I mean it's not just a 9 to 5. I'm talking like are living a rough life. But they're fine with it. They honestly enjoy it. And they're satisfied with the life they have. So how do you contrast that with the idea that you can get more out of life, if not anything you want out of life.
Well, so just to keep the Africa example and comparing it to like people in the U.S. who are grinding hard and having a pretty rough life here, I think it has to be tougher on the person who grew up in America and all that, just because they've seen ambition, they've seen the finer things before. So like they may not be like physically suffering from it, but they have to like mentally know like I'm not the best I could be or something like that. Does that make sense?
I got two things for you. First of all, I have a friend that's from Africa, and he would be very upset with you because not all of Africa is starving.
Yes,
And
I
there's a lot
know
of
that.
Africa.
Africa's a continent. There's countries in Africa that are doing
Right.
okay.
And I do have to give a disclaimer. I do have to say that he would want me to tell you that there's a lot of Africa that is robust and very vibrant and very successful, and that the stigma that the West has on the continent is not really what it is. But on the second part of it, I do understand what you're saying. Yeah. And it's it's a product of where you grow up and how you grow up that dictates what you're satisfied with. And but I think that that's maybe one of the good things about what we talk about here is that it doesn't matter where you started or where you want to go. The principles of freedom and power can help you get there. And if you want to get from starving to not starving, we can help you. If you want to get from, you know, working for somebody else to owning your own business, we can help you there. If you want to get from, honestly, if you want to get from just not being happy to being happy, we could get you there. And I would almost argue that we could get you there without even changing what job you have, where you live, how you live, but we just can change your outlook on life and on the situation you're in, and that freedom of thought perspective could, help people a tremendous amount without even affecting all the other factors that play a role in their lives.
Yeah, well, it's all about the way you perceive things, and if you're an optimistic person or you're a pessimist, that's gonna define basically if you're happy or not at the end of the day. If you're optimistic, something bad happens, and then you can get through it because you either look for the silver lining or you just know that it's not gonna last forever. And then there's other people who something bad happens and now their world is over.
Right. And I think one interesting part to that is if you live in America, regardless of what your outlook on life is, whether you're upset or you're happy with what you have, or honestly, even where you started, just by the simple fact that you live here, the opportunities are the same. You know what I mean? So you might have an echelonment of desire. You might have a different echelon of what where you start out at, or where how many resources you have to begin with. But in the end of the day, everyone has the same opportunity. So what we talk about on this show is taking advantage of those opportunities and going out there and making a life for yourself. And it doesn't matter if you start out at the very bottom or if you start out near the top. Either way, you can still take advantage of the same opportunities, and it's just whoever goes out there and takes it first. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's the people who are the most driven, who are going out. It's the go-getters who are going to take the opportunities the first chance they get.
No, I completely agree. It's 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 a process. Is really what I think it is. It's not what we're really trying to teach on this show. It's not so much, hey, make a goal and achieve that goal. It's not. It's a process. It's a mindset. It's how you look at life. It's, am I going to be proactive and flip that switch and be proactive in everything I do, or am I not? It's not that, we could you could take one of our episodes to heart and replicate it and become a business leader or a master adventurer or just a very disciplined human being who, is leads a very well-rounded life. But that's not the end state for what we talk about. The end state is that you have built a lifestyle and a mindset that is a process to where no matter what you face, no matter what goal you pick, you can achieve it. It's not about the one goal, It's awesome to achieve goals, but if you're just going to achieve one goal, no matter how big it is, then, how much does that mean? But it's, have you built the process to where you could have any goal you want and you could have 100 goals and you have a definitive and very proactive process to achieve that goal. And that's what we're doing here. It's a blanket process. It's not specific, and it can be applied to whatever it is that you want. But if you take the values and the techniques and the stories that we tell here to heart, you can apply it to any aspect of your life or to any business aspiration or to any athletic aspiration or to how you just interact with your family. It can really be used anywhere.
Yeah, that is exactly what we're shooting for on the show. I don't like the idea of being called like life coaches.
No, I hate that. We are not a motivational podcast. We're not, because what we're not going to do is we're not here to pat you on the back and make you feel good, because that's what a lot of motivational podcasts do. Is they try to make you feel good about yourself, and this is what they do. They say that they try to make you feel good about where you're at. They try to not improve you, but convince you that you're good where you're at, and that's not what we're here to do, and that's false. That's completely false. There is an aspect to the mentality that we talk about that will increase your personal perception and your outlook on life without improving yourself, but that's not what we're here for. We're not here to make you feel better. We're here to show you legitimate ways that you can improve yourself. And it's all about action. And I can without a doubt tell you right now that if you don't take action and you don't put in work to improve yourself, then you're not going to feel better. You're not going to be happier. And that's something that's different from a lot of motivational podcasts. I'm not here to bring the good feels to your current state of life. I'm here to bring your current state of life to a place that you feel accomplished.
Yeah. So basically, we're not going to hold your hand and tell you you're perfect. We're going to give you ways so you can go get that feeling on your own. Help you reach your personal definition of freedom.
Yes. And it's not easy either. And that's one thing that a lot of motivational podcasts don't tell you, is that it's not easy. It's very difficult to do. But it's not as difficult as you think it is. That's the key here. I think that's the crux of success in general.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a middle ground, like the way you're supposed to look at it. It's not as hard as you think it is, but it's not as easy as some people want you to think it is either. It's right there in the middle.
Right.
There's a
That's
sweet
I
spot.
think right. That's what. So this is what it is. This is what motivational podcasts do. Is they try to make you. They try to simplify the steps to success so much that they make you feel like it's so easy. So that's why you go and listen to them. That's why you buy their materials. That's why you buy their training courses. Is because they're trying to convince you that they have the silver bullet, the way for you to be successful with no work. And that's why they are a ripoff. No, that's not the case. There is work involved, but if you teach yourself the skills and the knowledge and create the processes that develop into success, it's nowhere near as difficult as you think it is. It's not luck. It's not, it's not 1 in a million chances. It's not. It's, are you willing to put in the work to gain that knowledge and gain that skill and to set yourself up for success? So I don't know. That's one thing I want to touch on real quick is it's not luck. And I think a lot of people look at very successful people and say that they're lucky. And I think that's, with all the people that we've talked about in the show, that's hopefully something that you've gained and you've realized is that it's not just luck. If you actually break down these people's lives, they knew what they were doing and they took definitive action to achieve the goals that they've set out to achieve. It's not luck. Luck is a blanket statement for that. Luck is a statement that people use to describe other people's successes that they don't understand. That's what luck is. It's, I don't understand how you got there, so I'm going to call it luck so that I don't feel bad that I don't understand how you got there. Does that make sense at all, Nick? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. But yeah, at the end of the day, all the successful people, they all worked hard to get to where they're at, and a lot of them are still working hard even though they've made it big. Like the stories about Elon Musk, how he sleeps in his factories and all that stuff. That's crazy because he could just relax. He could just chill.
What could he afford, honestly, though, with, what is it, he's worth $8 billion or something like that? No, that's my bad. He's worth $20 billion. Around $20 billion. No Jeff Bezos, but $20 billion. What could you do with that? I couldn't even imagine the type of lifestyle you could live with $20 billion. But I think that one of the reasons why you don't read these articles and you don't hear about these stories of what could you do with $20 billion, the reason why you don't hear about that is because the people who make $20 billion aren't trying to just go out there and do something ridiculous with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you'll hear about people who have like a couple million that go out there and do just some crazy shit, just absolutely bonkers, because they just accidentally ran into a couple $1 million, whether it's through fame or through, some sort of talent that they had where they didn't have the lifestyle put in place to build it. They just, I guess, got lucky, if you want to really break it down. But you never hear about the person who has a couple $1 billion just doing something absolutely stupid, because that's not the person they are, and they didn't make that money by acting stupid.
Yeah, and I feel like that also shows how, like, no matter what, there's always stages that you can, like, move up to when it comes to success. So, like, just use sports as an example. Like, I'll use fighting. Like, there's amateur fighting, then there's UFC. And for example, the people making $2 million, they're the best amateur fighter out there. people making billions, they're the ones winning championship belts in the UFC. They're the ones who are putting in the extra hard work 24/7, and they just keep going. I feel like the person making a couple million is the type or is sometimes the person who's like shows off their money. But the people making billions, they don't really show off their money at all. They just keep working.
Yeah. Which, that's a conversation for another time. But I think there's a very fine balance between, all right, I've made money, to where, hey, do I go and enjoy my money? I don't know. But, I mean, you're talking about fighting for a second. We might as well bring it a little bit back to reality. Khabib versus McGregor. You know about that fight at all, Nick?
No, I don't.
So, well, I thought you would maybe know a little bit, but
I haven't been keeping up lately.
Conor McGregor. Do you know who Conor McGregor is?
I thought he got kicked out recently or something like that. He got in trouble.
No, so he hasn't. So Conor McGregor hasn't fought in about 2 years because, well, he hasn't fought UFC in 2 years. So what he's done since then is done that fight with Mayweather. But he just signed a contract for like 8 fights, 6 fights or something like that with the UFC. But the first fight that he's doing next is with this guy named Khabib, and then 28 letter Russian last name. But Khabib is undefeated, 26-0, something like that, and is an absolute phenomenal wrestler. I'm talking, he submits very good people, right? He just takes them down over and over and over again and will end up submitting them. He's like a spider, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In wrestling, like there's always that one guy who just like literally does not stop. That's him. So, and he's undefeated. Just keep that in mind. But then McGregor is probably one of the best strikers that's ever lived. And he has absolutely annihilated some of the previously best fighters in the world. Eddie Alvarez, Jose Aldo, he's destroyed them. And he does it goofing off, just being himself. And that's another thing, it's a twofold thing. One, he's so incredibly confident because he's just that good. And two, he's had fights against, this is the way one of my friends put it. Conor McGregor has beat legendary people. Khabib has beat some world-class athletes, but is also undefeated and is an up-and-comer. So that's what we have going on here. We have, it's almost, what makes me nervous with McGregor is that it almost is like a Rocky Balboa type of thing where he's had so much money and he's taken like some time off where like has his fame and riches clouded his ability to win.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Khabib, who is like this up and comer who is Russian, so he like doesn't play the game. He's not emotional. Says he's going to be the guy to beat him. And you have two different styles, wrestling versus striking. But you also have McGregor, who you can't deny. McGregor is the veteran here. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a good fight. Do you know when the fight is?
Yeah. October 6th.
October 6th.
And to make things better, when McGregor got in some legal trouble for throwing the dolly through the window of the bus, that was Khabib's bus, because everyone had been talking of Khabib, and he was like, fight me now. So we'll see. McGregor kind of got in his head at the press conference a couple days ago. So, I mean, that's the thing is, Khabib is one of the best wrestlers that's ever been in the UFC, and he's undefeated, and he's young. But is McGregor just too good to be beat?
We're gonna find out.
Yeah, but both those guys deserve their own episodes here on this show because
Well,
they're pretty incredible.
we've already done McGregor, so we'll do one of Khabib.
Definitely. But yeah, you know, it'll be interesting. But one of the things, guys, that we want to start doing on the show is talking current events, news. Have you? I think the word news has been kind of tarnished because when you think of the news, you always think politics or something crazy that really doesn't have a huge impact on your life. But it is good to keep up to speed with what's going on in the world, and I think that's one of the best ways to show the principles on freedom and power is to analyze them through current events. I don't know. We're going to talk about a couple of things today. Um, well, I wanted to start out with World Rhino Day. It's not anything spectacular, but World Rhino Day was on the 22nd. And if you guys didn't know already, yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think I'm interested in that.
Well, tell us a little bit about the rhinos then, Mason.
Well, there's a couple different types of rhinos: black rhinos, white rhinos, Sumatran rhinos, Javan rhinos, and Indian rhinos. There's very few of pretty much all of them left, which that's one of the things that interests me most is what makes a rhino? Like, how are they still alive? Because when you look into how they work, it takes like 2 years to have a calf. So, and all they do is eat grass too. You'd think that a badass rhino would be like hunting or something, but they don't. They just eat grass. Takes 2 years to have a calf, and they're one of the most hunted species on the planet because of their horns. So I don't know. I don't know where I was really going with this, but I think that it's just pretty interesting. They have their horns are used in Chinese medicines, which is another wild topic that people think stuff like that still works. I don't know. I don't know where they get it from.
That's some like old ancient stuff. That's the type of stuff like bring me goat's hair and a human eyeball and I'll boil it and then there you go, you'll be healthy for the rest of your life. That's like witchcraft.
Yeah, I mean, so what a lot of times what they'll do is they'll cut down the horn preemptively to try to inhibit people from hunting them. But a quick story, I do have one of my friends from the past. We might have talked about him once or twice in the past, but you guys probably, most of you listeners probably haven't heard this story. But one of my buddies is from Botswana, which has the second biggest elephant pride in the world, and he's in their army. So what they do, because there's really no wars going on right now, is what their army does is they go and protect these elephants from poachers. But it's really just it's a crude business because it's very hard to patrol like such big areas of land. So usually what they end up doing is having to hunt them down after they've already assassinated an elephant, which I would consider killing an elephant an assassination for the most part. They're pretty cool animals. I don't know, Nick. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, you've told me the story before. Yeah, that's pretty cool. They're not in war, so I don't. That's a good way to use your resources, especially if the country likes their elephants, and if people are just gonna keep killing them, you gotta stop them somehow. I'm not 100% against it.
I think the interesting part about this whole thing is that people still think that having like what is it with humans? What is it with human beings where owning something that is rare. What's the appeal with that? What's the appeal with having something made out of ivory? It's basically just teeth. Why don't they or bone? Why don't they just make something out of bone? What's so cool about ivory? It really it's wild. It's what's wild what human beings can become obsessed with. You know,
Well,
there's so
if you think ivory is rare, I'm trying to remember. There's some animal skin that people just love to have, and it's illegal to hunt the animal. I'm blanking on what animal it is, but and like it goes for a crap ton of money. Uh, do you know how much ivory goes for?
I do not, but I probably should know. But it's it's not even about how much money it goes for because that's just a symptom to the problem. The problem is that people even want it in the first place. What's does it is it like a power thing? But if it let's say this for a second, let's go into it. Let's go into a little bit of human psychology. Even if it was a power thing, if you go out there nowadays and shoot a tiger or an elephant with a high-powered rifle, what's the power perspective? Because you're shooting them from a distance. It's not like a fair fight or anything. So what are you getting out of it? What's the appeal?
Well, I feel like so like you remember when you were younger, and then you'd go to a museum or something, and it'd say "Do not touch,"
Is that what it is?
and you'd just want to touch it.
Maybe.
I
Is that what
I
these
feel
people are
like I feel like
doing?
that's what it is for at the simplest form. People want it because it says "Do not touch," and then people are like, "Well, all right, I'll go kill it and I'll sell it to you for tons of money." They almost enable it.
Maybe. It's just did I ever tell you that story or did I we ever talk about the albino people in Africa?
No.
I'll talk about that real quick. But there's like this one country in Africa that has the highest percentage of albino people in the world. And, of course, the same principle applies. People think that the ground up bones of these albino people are somehow magic or whatnot. So there's this huge market for hunting these albino people and then, using them as medicine. And it's like you could have stopped anywhere. You could have stopped at why don't we just grind? You could have ground up a rare panda bone and used that as medicine. But no, you had to say that these people are like I just don't understand. I just feel like is that pessimistic? Is that like a Thomas Hobbes perspective on human beings to think that they just are inherently evil? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a little insane. I think that's worse than the rhinos, to tell you the truth.
It definitely is. It just seems like people on the global perspective will just find the absolutely wrong thing to
Well,
do.
so, no offense to Road Rhino Day, but screw Road Rhino Day. Where's the African Albino Day?
That's what I'm saying. I just don't know. Is that so? Is that a product of education? Because there is at some extent you have to say that it's hard to do, but you do have to take the onus off individuals at some point and say that they're just a product of their environment. Where if you're raised to think that you know rhino horn is a medicine, then can you blame every one of those Chinese people that believe that or believe that shark fin soup is good for you? Can you blame them? But where did it start and how do you change it? Was there just one person one day that said if we, hunt a human being, that's the move? Like, was there someone who started that, or how did it begin?
I don't know. I guess back in the olden days, they did things a little differently than we do it now. Well, back then they didn't have actual medicine, so I guess what probably happened is that what I think happened is they accidentally used African albino bones, and it worked, but in reality the bone was not necessary, and it just became a thing.
You think?
That's the only
It's
logical solution I could think of in my mind.
because then you just you get more into that perspective where we're getting way off topic here, but I think it's okay. But Rasputin, the Russian doctor that took care of the Tsar's kid. So I'll give a little shout out here. You guys, if you haven't listened to him, Dan Carlin, he is a podcaster. I think most people will consider him possibly the best podcaster around. But what he does is he doesn't have a routine podcast. He doesn't have a time-based podcast. He does history podcasts, and he'll put them out like once every couple months, but they'll be like a 6-hour podcast on history. And to be completely honest, you'll learn more in them, and you'll be more interested than you were in any history class you ever were in. And some of his big ones are Genghis Khan, and he does a really good World War one because he'll talk about how World War One occurred and all the processes that were happening. And he gives his own personal spin on it. But one of the things he talks about is Rasputin. And he was, if you don't know who he was, because Nick probably doesn't know, but
No idea.
basically the Russian Tsar, which is the Russian king, he had a kid who suffered from, is it anemia, where you don't have the blood clotting capabilities? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
And
I'm
so
pretty
if
sure.
you But so he was suffering from that. But there's this guy, Rasputin, who was like these kinds of doctors where he said he could just heal anything. And he basically used black magic to heal this kid. But the interesting part was on multiple occasions it worked. Like one time they had fired this guy because it was absolute bullshit, and then the kid started dying and no one could save him. They called him back that day. He was saved, and it was just like 4 or 5 times in the most clutch ways possible. This guy was able to save the kid through black magic. So then he became renowned, and part of the issue was he got the ear of the czar, and he was like a neighborhood drunk who was an absolute alcoholic, committed crimes, was a horrible human being, but whenever the czar said, "My son is sick, can you help?" he always found a way to save him. And I don't know. Maybe black magic does work. I don't know.
Yeah. I've never tried black magic or had it done on me. I don't plan on ever having black magic done on me or learning the skill. But
And then the weirdest part was at the very end of it when they finally were trying to get rid of him. Apparently they shot him, and then he came back alive. Like, he didn't come back alive, but he just showed up the next day. And then apparently they had to shoot him like 4 times in the chest, and he still was like getting up and walking around and trying to survive until he finally died. But once again, I'm sorry, Dan Carlin. We did not mean to ruin your podcast. You guys should definitely go listen to him. It's an interesting story. But we've been getting way off topic. But that's one of the good things about freedom and power is you need to go out there and gain new knowledge. But yeah, what else you got, Nick?
another current event is there was this married couple. This guy from England had a Thai wife. He was a millionaire, and they were found dead in northern Thailand. And after doing some investigating, 3 suspects were in custody, and supposedly, allegedly, his own brother is the one who hired them to carry out the attack. And basically, his motive for killing them is because they were mad at each other, basically, over some property disputes, and they had family conflicts and feuds. And that's how you end up with your brother killing you.
That's what's the freedom and power connection here though? I think it's that maybe one, don't trust anyone, or
That's a freedom empowered connection.
I don't. It can be tied back. It could be that on a broader level, you can't just trust everyone. You have to look out for yourself and look out for your loved ones, and that's part of uh, setting up a life for yourself where you're independent and you don't have to rely on other people. Maybe a connection. And two, probably the biggest connection is you could die any day. So if you're going to spend, your entire life just chasing money, why? Because you could just end up dead. You gotta learn to enjoy your life as you live, just in case something like this ends up happening to you. Your own brother kills you. It's like, do you guys, Nick, have you heard about Kim Jong-un's brother and what he did to him?
Yeah, wasn't he killed in China?
No, no, no. So it was in Malaysia. So what happened was Kim Jong-un's brother was, so both of them were raised outside the country. They were both not raised, but they went to school. So that was one thing that really gets to me is how can you be educated in a Western world and then go back to your country and become a dictator like that? But regardless, what happened was his brother was, you know how North Korea is basically controlled by China, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's their main ally. So China was grooming his brother for power. So just in case Kim Jong-un got too crazy, they would kill him and put his brother in power because his brother was a more moderate person. But, so his brother was obsessed with Disney World, right? He just wanted to go to Disney World. So his brother tries to escape the country to go to Disney World. And when he was in Malaysia, Kim Jong-un had him poisoned and killed. Just because he didn't want to have a backup for the basically the presidency there if it came down to that. But I don't know. It's the question is, how could you kill your own brother?
I don't get it either. It's just sometimes you see these things on the news, and you just think like, what? Like, I don't know. You have to hate them enough, and then you would also have to hate them more than you would some person you barely know. Because just to kill someone you barely know is, in my opinion, is an extreme thing to do, and not to kill your own brother. That's a whole nother level.
Does that mean that is it? You think it's like that power corrupts, and that just when you become that powerful, you don't see anything other than that control?
Well, I wouldn't really blame it on the power. I blame it on like them being batshit crazy and also having power. I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. Because there's a lot of people with power who are good people, but it's It's the batshit crazy people with power that you need to worry about.
How does someone that's that batshit crazy become that powerful? I don't know. It's it's crazy because you'll see it in you'll. I mean, you tie it back to this is where I can make a freedom and power connection right here. Is a lot of people hate the rich because you do see a lot of people who are very successful on the highest levels that are batshit crazy or just bad people. And I think one of the biggest things is in order to get to that level of success, a lot of times you do have to have almost a non-human focus on power to put in the work necessary to get there. So there's always they always if you guys hear the stat, they said like 80% of CEOs have psychopathic tendencies. It's because in order to get there, you have to be so calculated and so focused on success and power that you end up being someone who is slightly a psychopath. And I think that kind of deters a lot of people from success. I know a lot of people I talk to, what they'll say is, I don't want to be rich because look at all these people who are rich. And I don't know if that's a good argument or not. Because I don't think this is what it is. Being rich doesn't make you a shitty person. It just so happens that a lot of shitty people become rich because there's a lot of people out there who are rich that aren't shitty people. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Well, we talked about it 2 episodes ago. How becoming rich doesn't make you a douchebag. Being a douchebag makes you a douchebag.
And just being rich will exemplify the character traits that you possess. So it'd be pretty hard bent to validate that excuse that a lot of people have, and I'd say that's almost a bullshit excuse to say that I don't want to be successful just because I'm a wholesome person, and a wholesome person needs to live a balanced life that isn't wildly successful. I don't think that living a balanced life or not being rich or not pursuing your dreams somehow makes you a better person. I don't think it does at all. I think it's an excuse.
Yeah, and then we'll move on to our last current event. Our last current event is someone who is currently pursuing their dream. We're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo of the San Francisco 49ers. He was just injured week 3 of the NFL season, and he's actually out for the rest of the season, which blows like a mother effer. But I don't know, the reason why I thought this was a good one just because he is probably one of the hardest working people in the NFL, and his contract proves it too. He got paid $27.5 million per year. That's the highest yearly average in league history. And in reality, his skills, I wouldn't say he's the best skill-wise out of all the quarterbacks, but he's a good quarterback. He spent a couple years under Tom Brady, and he didn't play very much, but he used that entire time just to learn and gain knowledge, try to become the best quarterback for when it was his time. He was ready to roll.
Yeah, I think you can gain a couple pieces of knowledge from this. I think one of them is for those of you that think that you are incapable of being successful or somehow because you've experienced failure or you see people around you being more successful than you, it doesn't mean that you're incapable of achieving success. It doesn't mean that you're not as good as those other people. It might just mean that you might have in a roster of 100 people, you might be number 2, but the person in your position is number 1, and that's how it was with Tom Brady. But you see how he transfers, and he didn't give up, and he continued to build up his skills and build up his knowledge and to continue to push forward. And then as soon as he switched teams, all of a sudden he's, one of the highest paid athletes in the league. So for those of you that are working a job where, you might not be the boss right now, you might be getting shit on by some employer that you think you're better than, you might be. But what are you going to do to change your circumstances in order to make your skills more apparent? In order to take advantage of the skills you have, you might have to change your venue. You might have to take advantage of freedom of movement and move somewhere else. You might have to change your freedom of action and get a different job. You might not be the best at the specific job that you happen to land in out of college or out of high school, but I bet you that I know you have a skill that can be monetized, and you have a skill that you're the best at that you could take advantage of. You just gotta change the game. You gotta play your cards right and really take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. And there's unlimited opportunities out there.
Yeah, and I think he's just a good. He's good evidence that hard work does pay off, because he spent years as a backup, and as a backup, no one really knows how good you're doing except for yourself, really. Only you know how hard you're working. And then when he finally switched teams, he freaking crushed it in the NFL. Or not, I said that like he was out of the NFL. He crushed it his first season starting. He didn't start the entire season, but he didn't lose a single game last season when he started. This year is a little different, but I don't know, that just that alone is just crazy, just because he was technically a backup quarterback. No one, for most quarterbacks, when you think backup quarterback, you think Curtis Painter. Do you know who Curtis Painter is, Mason?
I do not know.
Exactly my point.
Yeah, I don't know.
And that just shows that to be backup quarterback where you're not, or just backup in general, where no one really knows who you are, but you're putting in the work, you're eventually going to get there where you're the starting quarterback. And making big plays, making big money.
Right. And you might be the backup businessman, you might be the backup podcaster, but you never know. You just keep plugging away and keep working, keep your eye on the ball, and who knows where you're going to end up. But as we can tie this back to what we said earlier, it's not luck. It's not luck. There's not one bit of success that has to do with luck, I would say. And if you put in the work and you really dedicate yourself and pursue your dreams with all of your effort and intelligence that you can, when you're very successful and everyone says, oh, this guy was lucky, you're going to look at him and say, no, I wasn't lucky. I knew exactly where I was headed. I knew exactly what I wanted to accomplish, and I'm not surprised that I accomplished it, because it's not luck, because I know what I did to get here. And anyone can do it. You just have to really buckle down and make sure it happens. But yeah, that's all me and Nick got for you guys today. You guys should definitely check out our private Facebook group where we can have a conversation. I'd love to hear what your guys' ideas are. I'm sure a lot of you have crazy ideas that you just aren't in an environment to share, or where you just don't have someone around you that is ready to be a partner. But me and Nick, we would love to hear about your guys' new ideas and to try to help you any way we can. So you guys look us up. We're on Facebook, and we have freedomempowered.com, our website. And just keep listening in, and we'll talk to you guys next episode. Thanks for tuning in.